answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
And that these would be consistent with my thinking. I would only reverse it in the following order. The Straits of Hormuz, it would have to come first, because what they're doing there is unlawful and illegal to begin with. That has to open immediately. And that has to open immediately in exchange, not for anything else other than us lifting the blockade. We have a blockade on Iranian oil leaving. And the reason why we have a blockade on Iranian oil leaving is because they closed the straits. If they open the straits, and by open the straits, understand what we're saying. It's saying you're not going to threaten to shoot at commercial vessels of civilians and create, ecological disaster. That's what they're doing. It's unlawful, it's illegal, it's outrageous. Every country in the world condemns it. If they end that, we lift the blockade. Then we enter into the second phase, which is the nuclear question. On enrichment, they don't have to, they don't need to enrich. If what they want is a nuclear energy program, they can have one without enrichment. And it was somebody the other day, a few questions ago, I forgot who it was, said that what we're working on is similar to JCPOA. It is not. JCPOA would have expired this year, and it allowed them to keep all the enrichment equipment that they needed, and clearly that equipment could get them to 60 and 90% because they've done it to 60% as a result of it.
That is that is Secretary of State Rubio addressing a question from Senator Ted Cruz in his first appearance before the Senate since the, quote, war began. And he's talking about the Strait of Hormuz, how important that is. That's important to the international world as well as Iran having nuclear weapons. And as he was making it clear, we need to get the strait open, keep it open for the world as a whole. That's why we have our naval armada in place, and we're making sure that Iran does not close down the strait. It is international waters, but Iran wants to claim it as its own waters. It cannot do so. And he made it very clear that that's something we need to do. And, of course, we need to make sure we stop them from enriching more uranium and try to get it out of the material out of the country. If Iran wants to have a peaceful nuclear program to bring themselves out of the Stone Age, I'm all for it. But the Iran regime as it exists now, they want that capability to go ahead and enrich it to bomb-grade level, and while they are still in the Stone Age, bomb you into the hell of the Stone Age. It is clear as that, and yet you've got leftist lackeys that just can't seem to grasp that idea. Right in their face. Oh, but speaking about in their face, this is something even CNN could not ignore. I'm looking at their homepage. It'll be changed by the time you look at it, but as I'm looking at it right now, in the center of their homepage, big headlines, U.S. economy added 172,000 jobs in May, shattering expectations. Oh, don't you know? They think, oh, my God, we don't want to put that on, but how can we ignore it? They can't ignore it. It's everywhere. 170,000 new jobs, which we talked about the other day. Now, when the Biden administration was in place, if they had 170,000 jobs added, they were all government jobs for the most part because they were busy regulating many small businesses out of operation and regulating big businesses so they could not expand. And CNN has to suck it up and say, U.S. economy added 172,000 jobs, shattering expectations. I love it. I absolutely love it. Hey, welcome to hour number one. Larry Connors, USA. Here we are, June 5, 2026. And as usual, charging out the gate like a bull. If you've never listened to this program, you're going to find it very difficult to find a place where you're going to quit listening. I guarantee you, because you're going to be caught up and say, I got to hear the next part. Yes, we build it that way. But I have an answer for you. If you have to break away and you cannot stay with us, every program goes up as a podcast later. And we're streaming video while I'm speaking right now. You can watch the program. I encourage you to do it. Yeah, I get a little excited on the air. But go ahead and watch us on NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Facebook or Twitter, Larry Connors USA Rumble or Facebook. But again, if you miss anything, you can go back to NewsTalkSTL, pull up the podcast, LarryConnorsUSA.com, and Larry Connors USA Facebook. We make it available. And you will not be disappointed because, I tell you, we shift gears a lot, and so many things are interlocked that you got to hear the next part of the next story or the next item we promote. And you know why? Because I want you to be there. I had one guy one time years ago on TV. He's saying, that program you're doing on your series of what it was, you said the next part tomorrow. You could have told us the whole thing tonight. You're just trying to make us watch. My answer, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what we're doing. And that's what we do on this program. But at the same time, we deliver. We deliver. With Larry Connors USA, you get news, analysis, opinion, and education. You leave each hour with more knowledge than you have as you begin that hour. So what do we have coming up in our next hour? Let me give you an idea here. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to be looking at, God, I don't know. I haven't gotten there. I don't know what I'm adding yet. I'm still putting the program together. No, I do. I know. And it's going to be dealing with a lot of what's happening with the Democrats as they continue to try to steal elections and everything else. That'll be part of the next hour. And the fascinating story about how we got the German code machine, Enigma. You've seen it in the movies. It's been talked about. We'll have that as well. But also, we're going to get into the effort to take away one of the most popular pistols used in America, the Glock. That story will be coming up in the next hour. Later this hour, the John Bolton charges, the classified material. Do you remember when John Bolton, who did serve as a period of time in the first Trump administration as national security advisor, until Trump realized this guy's wacko. I don't want him anywhere around me. And do you remember when John Bolton was condemning Trump and everyone else except Biden and everyone about hiding classified materials, and now he's facing 5 years in jail, $2 million fine for doing exactly the same thing? We're not going to let that rest. That'll be coming up as well in this hour, and we'll get into more detail as well. The story behind the story today, our normal feature that appears at the 6 o'clock hour now, at the end of each hour near the 6 o'clock hour, first hour. On this date, the attempt to kill Robert Kennedy. He was shot on this date. He died the next day, 25 and a half hours later. But there's still a lot of questions about Sirhan. Why did he do it? Did he even know what he was doing? Government operatives put something in his hand, in his blood, to make it happen? The story behind the story on the Robert Kennedy assassination before we wrap up this hour. Now back to this hour. Senator Cruz questioning Secretary of State Rubio about dealing with Iranians and trying to help the Iranian people, and he raised a question, valid question. Rubio had the answer.
For some time, I have urged the administration, I've urged Israel to arm the protesters in Iran. I don't think it is fair to expect the Iranian people to stand up, protesters to stand up with rocks against soldiers with machine guns. Are we arming the protesters, and should we be?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any program to arm civilians in Iran to overthrow their government. I mean, there may be other countries doing it or other elements, but certainly not the U.S. government.
And we know that we apparently are helping the Kurds, arming them so they can go back into Iran, which was originally Persia. So to that extent, we're probably doing that, but supposedly not directly arming them. This is back to the Reagan-Contra issue when we were arming the Contras to go against the government. So he's on record. Cruz was told by Rubio, we're not doing it, not to my knowledge. Now, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, which has not really been in support of the war effort, made this statement.
I've said for a long time and argued for a long time that sanctions in and of themselves rarely, if ever, are of any value. I've yet to see any Chinese behavior that's changed because of sanctions. I've yet to see any Russian behavior change because of sanctions. I've really yet to see any Iranian behavior change because of sanctions. However, sanctions do have some leverage and ability to exact change if you remove them. So the removal of sanctions might actually have some hope. So I support the administration in this. Now, there are many Republican critics who have been vocal on the airwaves recently saying, oh, no, we can never negotiate with them. These are terrible people. Well, you don't really negotiate with really friendly, good people. You're, in a time of war, you're going to have to negotiate with an adversary. So I do commend and supportive of the idea of this. And the other thing is it's very verifiable. You don't have to wait for verification. You could say the trade sanctions end as soon as we get the 440 kilograms of enriched uranium. Now, it has to be dug, I guess, some of it from under a mountain of rubble, but at the same time be very verifiable.
In other words, he's basically in support of what we're doing. And I'm glad he took to the floor of the Senate during this congressional hearing, Senate hearing, with Secretary of State Rubio to make that clear. I'm glad he did that. But we do have the naysayers on the other side. A question is raised, and on one point, I'm going to give her credit for raising the question. But then she persists. She wants to go wacko, which is very common. California Congresswoman Jacobs questioning Rubio.
Yesterday, in your Senate testimony, you told Senator Booker that the war in Iran is over. This is news to me. It's also news to my 2,500 constituents, Marines, San Diego Marines in the Middle East off the coast of Iran, the other of my constituents who are deployed there, and the thousands more of my constituents who have 48-hour deployment notices whose families are still very concerned. But okay, I will take you at your word. If the war is over, I have a simple question. Who won?
First of all, Epic Fury is over, which is what you would consider the war. That operation is
So you
concluded.
agree it's a war, then?
No, those are hostilities. They called it a war.
Okay.
I'm just responding to the Senator Booker's
Mr. Secretary,
question.
you can change the name of the operation. It doesn't change the fact that the strait is still closed and my service members and all of our service members are still in harm's way. The war is not over. But I'm agreeing with you. Okay, fine. We're taking you at your word. The war is over. Who won?
Well, first of all, you're not taking me at my word. It's a fact. We're no longer conducting sustained strikes inside of Iran to degrade their military because Epic Fury is over. The second point is on the question of who won, I can tell you this. We defined victory as destroying their defense industrial base, significantly reducing the number of missile launchers that they possess, significantly reducing their stockpile of drones, and we achieved all of those in addition to destroying what they had left of an air force and wiping out their entire conventional navy. Those are all gone. So I consider that victory, and we did too, and that was the purpose of Epic Fury.
Yeah, but you know what? That's not enough to satisfy the Democrats. And during one of the hearings, you're hearing yelling from Democrat and even storming out of the room.
Unfortunately, Representative's time has expired. Representative Salazar is recognized.
Yes, and giving contracts with no transparency is exactly the reason why you shut down USAID. So practice what you preach. I yield my time.
She gets to scream now too?
Chairman, can we take down her words?
I'll give you some time. I'll give you some of my time. Let me just
okay.
God,
what kind of thing is this? What is this? You get asked questions for 5 minutes and you don't get time to answer. It's not a hearing.
I think you said clown show before.
Tank? What is this?
I don't have to tell you. I don't.
I've even used their time. How can I answer the question? They don't even give me time. I've had to use their time to answer your questions.
Yes.
All right, whatever.
All right, so I don't need to tell you that in my community, the city that I represent, the city of Miami, you're one of the most illustrious representatives, and that we're very proud of you, not only the Cuban Americans, but the Hispanic Americans in my
Why is she leaving? I'm going to answer her questions.
I will.
Oh, okay, I got it. Well, thank you for coming.
They cannot stand facing the facts, can they? Turn their back on it. Walk out of the room. Leftists have locked themselves into a cage, and they continue to do so. I want you to listen to Massachusetts Congressman Moulton being questioned on CNN about supporting Graham Plattner.
When he was just in Washington, though, meeting with Democratic senators, seeming to want to allay concerns about his candidacy, they asked him, what if there is more? And that is a question. What if there is more? Is that Do you think that would then be too much for Graham Plattner to continue?
I mean, we just don't know. We just don't know what more can come out. But I do know this, that he's running against a senator who every single day rubber stamps Trump's agenda. A senator who, just like 98% of the Republican Party, supports this war in Iran that's raising everybody's gas prices, that's getting Americans killed, that's killing innocent people in the Middle East, that's hurting our allies, that's taking our eye off the ball when it comes to deterring and preventing a war with China in Asia. So all of these things that Susan Collins does every single day are bad. And I think voters in Maine are going to have to make a decision that only they can make, weighing those two alternatives.
And the congressman from Massachusetts will not condemn Plattner for being a Nazi, and yet he's one of the ones hollering that Trump is a Nazi, and they're willing to accept it because we just have to take the bad. We just have to swallow and vote. I'm not the only one saying that. On The View, I'm sure many of you watch that with all those women. On The View, Sonny Holston had this to say about Graham Plattner.
Yesterday, I was sort of on the fence. I'm like, character matters. Morals matter. I can't believe that this is the person in Maine that's going to, you know, take on the Republican, take on Susan Collins. I'm now convinced that we are really in a bad place in this country. Democrats have to take over the Senate. They have to take over the House. They have to bring some semblance of normalcy back to this government. And if it takes getting behind someone like Plattner, which 51% of voters in Maine say that they will get behind him as opposed to 42%, if I lived in Maine, I would hold my nose and I would pull that lever and I would vote for him.
And I would just eat his dog stuff that he leaves behind. That's how much we want to defeat Trump. They were willing to accept everything they blamed Trump of doing. They're willing to accept every bit of it. Graham Plattner, declared Nazi, has said denigrating things, I should say, against blacks and homosexuals, and yet they're willing to go ahead and, okay, that's the best we got. Van Jones of CNN pointing out the other day, Democrats have very poor candidates because of Donald Trump. They're blaming Trump because they can't find good candidates? They are in a cage, as I said. Coming up, we're going to talk about Bolton's classified documents charge, and don't forget our story behind the story. The assassination of Robert Kennedy, and a lot of questions about, was Sirhan doped up by someone to go carry out that killing? Lock and load. Ready. On the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, you know, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I think a lot of these documents he may have just thought were cool. A lot of them he thought might be souvenirs. A lot of them he thought might be useful to him later. I can't answer the question until I see the document. But, well, there are a lot of theories that he could use it as information against his enemies, that he could give it to people in exchange for favors. We don't know, and frankly, I don't think speculating about the reasons is all that helpful. The simple fact he had the documents, for any reason or no reason, should subject him to prosecution.
For any reason or no reason, he should be subjected to prosecution. The words of John Bolton, who had been for a period of time the national security advisor for Trump in the first administration, till Trump booted him, saying, you're just too crazed to be in my cabinet. And then later, when the Mar-a-Lago raid took place, where all the documents were laid out perfectly on the carpet, do you really think they would have left like that? You know that event was staged. You know the video was staged. And, of course, all of it had to do with the alleged Russian collusion, which we now know was fake. But John Bolton, who was cuddling up to Trump so he could get that national security advisor position, once he was cut loose, he's showing his true colors. I had one of my guests the other day describe Bolton as the swampiest of the swamp creatures still there. John Bolton, of course, is now facing his own issue with classified documents. And you just heard him say, for any reason or no reason of having classified documents, he should be prosecuted. Let me track this back a little bit for you. Right now, Bolton has a plea agreement with federal prosecutors. He's going to plead guilty to one felony count of retaining national defense information. The 77-year-old could get a maximum sentence of 5 years in jail and a $2 million fine. Now, this is all set for the arraignment hearing June 26. I doubt he's going to get a full 5 years. They'll give him I don't know if they'll put him behind bars at all. I hope the hell they do. But he's going to plead guilty to that, so they're going to drop 17 other transmission and retention counts he was initially indicted in. Now, this transmission of classified docs, that really interests me, and I don't know a lot more about than what we're seeing presented to us. Supposedly, Bolton was writing all this stuff in a personal diary seen only by his wife and daughter. Now, maybe he sent a text saying, look at Here's some of the information I'm going to include in my diary. Classified documents. He was sending diary-like notes containing classified information to 2 family members via email and messaging apps. That's as close as we're getting to an understanding of what did he do as transmitting. Well, that's still enough. That's a violation. I'll go back to John Bolton's words. For no reason or any reason, he had these classified documents. He being Trump at that point, he should be charged with violations. And again, before his own indictment, Bolton was one of Trump's most vocal critics anyway concerning the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case, constantly on cable news, demanding the Department of Justice, quote, move as rapidly as possible to prosecute Trump. And blaming that Trump's defense, claiming he magically declassified documents, was meritless, and argued the handling provided or proved severe negligence. I've yet to see him complain about how Biden had classified materials all over it, didn't know where half of them were, some stacked in his garage next to his prize Corvette, which Hunter Biden had access to. We don't know what he got into those files and what he took out or what he left or what he photographed and then put back. And, of course, Biden was apparently also using classified documents dealing with a biographer to write his biography. We still don't know all the details of that. In the meantime, dealing with fraud that affects you directly, money out of your pocket, not government secrets that, and I'm not going to say everything is classified should be. I mean, I do agree the government overclassifies a lot of material, just trying to CYA in some cases. But when it comes to your money, and when you look at, like, Minnesota in particular, the fraud that was taking place, stealing through the SNAP program, supplemental nutritional program to help families, especially mothers and children, to get money and food. Ag Secretary Brooks said we did everything we can to bust it all up, and yet she is getting pushback from a Minnesota Democrat, Congressman Craig.
Because Minnesota's to USDA. Your state is saying we only have 1.6% fraud rate, which we all know is an absolute joke.
I'll say it again. The USDA's own data found 1.6%. I don't know.
No, we were relying on your data from Minnesota, and you won't share it with us.
The difference between error rates and fraud rates. I honestly don't. It is one of the lowest fraud rate in any program in America is the SNAP program.
The lowest fraud rate of any program in America is the SNAP program? You can't be serious when you say that.
Your own data says 1.6%.
Again, that's because the states, your state has told us that number,
once more.
And you won't allow us to confirm it.
You've bragged on TV that it's a great thing that you kicked 4 million people off SNAP.
The ability to work, the righteousness of work is not
reclaiming my time. 700,000
We should be proud.
Kids.
That's the goal of these welfare programs.
Madam Secretary, I'm asking you these questions because these issues, this committee, it's all personal.
You're not asking questions for an answer. You're asking questions to make a political
reclaiming my time again.
I would like to actually have a real conversation.
Madam Secretary, Mr. Chair, she talked over half of my time here. So, look, when you describe the farm...
See, you kicked 4 million off the SNAP rolls. Well, they never should have been on there. Some of them were dead or should have been 125 years old. And some didn't exist at all. Or they had actually been put in graves. And they were all on there. That's fraud. And then rather than the Ag Secretary being praised for cleaning it up and protecting the money of Minnesotans and the nation as a whole, he gets pushback from a Minnesota Congressman, woman Craig, saying you're mixing up fraud and fudging numbers and everything else. She's just, again, trying to sell you a lie. AG Secretary Brooks was basically breaking apart all the fraud. White House counsel Stephen Miller says the task force that we originally put in place continues to do its job.
I think you can all agree that this is the fastest in history that a government task force has traveled from creation to action. Your typical lead time is going to be a year of meetings before anything happens. and that's if you're lucky. And within weeks of this task force being established, we've seen the largest ever slate of indictments, recovered funds, search warrants, raids, seizures, investigations, and new legal actions to stop, disrupt, and prevent fraud. What we've learned, which is not surprising to those of us who've spent some time in this area, is that fraud is every bit as bad as President Trump said it was, and even worse. So in other words, everything we found either confirms our worst fears or exceeds them. That's the bad news. The good news is that the best team in government under the leadership of Vice President Vance has been assembled to deal with it.
Yeah, and doing a damn good job. And in a rapid pace. You know, I began at the top of the hour mentioning about how CNN could not ignore a record pace of jobs added to the payrolls of private industry. Even Axios is pointing the same thing out, saying that the job market booms with 172,000 made jobs, unemployment holding steady. They have a separate article, May's blowout report shows a boom like new jobs pace. All of this is good for America. And it affects you regardless of what your color is, your religion, your ancestry, even if you're a gender that doesn't exist. But you're not going to hear the left praise it other than having to report the facts, and they don't like doing that. You know that. In the meantime, Hunter Biden is trying to come back into place. He's trying to charm all of his trolls, everyone that comes after him. Again, this is from Axios. Or actually, it is Axios this time. Talking about how Hunter Biden is really trying to get all those who have been against him to kind of like him again. I don't care. Not going to get it. Not going to get any favoritism and appreciation from me. Now, Madonna, I will appreciate for her music ability. I will give her credit for that. But the rest of her life, like many other actors and entertainers, is wacko. She just posted a bizarre video of herself crawling around on all fours in front of her toilet, letting her breast hang out of her dress, smoking a cigarette to issue a Pride Month message. Nothing says Pride Month celebration like Madonna on all fours in front of her toilet. Good God. They want you to believe they're sane? Of course they're not. Coming up, the story behind the story. The assassination of Robert Kennedy and questions about Sirhan, which still have not been resolved.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website NapoliSTL.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Onder Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Onder wins. Onder, O-N-D-E-R, underlaw.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
The Ambassador Hotel, Los Angeles, on June 5th, 1968, headquarters for the Robert Kennedy for President campaign. Victorious in the crucial California primary, Kennedy addresses an enthusiastic crowd in one of the hotel's ballrooms.
My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there.
As he turned and went by me, he turned to the right toward the kitchen.
When he did come through, lots of television cameras and stuff, and we were going into a press conference.
He was shaking hands with the two busboys, talking with them, and it was at that time that the shots started.
Major D reported that Senator Kennedy had been shot.
He's been shot?
That's right.
I just heard this crackling noise and was shaking violently, and I thought I was being electrocuted. That was my impression.
Senator Kennedy has been shot. Is that possible? Is that possible?
I saw him laying on the ground, and I knew that he wasn't going to live.
Back. Everybody else, just please stay back. Just a doctor, come right here.
25 and a half hours after he is shot at 1:44 a.m. on June 6th, Robert Kennedy dies.
So the story behind the story today, it was on this date, 1968, that Robert Kennedy was shot, and no one could believe it. I mean, his brother, who had been president or assassinated, and now Robert F. Kennedy, as he's celebrating a victory win and getting ready to claim the Democrat nomination, hopefully, going forward. That was some of the reporting from Boston WBZ TV. I always want to give you the source where I see it available. Kennedy was a U.S. Senator candidate in the 68 Democrat presidential primaries. He had won California and South Dakota primaries on June 4, so he was addressing his campaign supporters. They're in the Ambassador Hotel and Embassy Ballroom. They were ecstatic. And when he left, they were cheering and jumping and yelling and all shouting. And then word came back. He's been shot. He was exiting after leaving the podium, going through a kitchen hallway, taking time to shake hands with some of the kitchen workers. There were numerous witnesses.
Immediately following the shooting, there was little doubt in anyone's mind that 24-year-old Sirhan B. Sirhan, using an 8-shot, .22 caliber revolver, was the one who killed Kennedy and wounded 5 others. There were 77 people in the pantry that night, witnesses. He was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death. An open and shut case. Or was it? Greg Stone has spent over a decade looking into the Kennedy assassination. He is one of a number calling for a reinvestigation of the case. A call based on seeming inconsistencies in the physical evidence and on a belief that the original investigation is flawed. A belief that is remarkably shared by former LAPD Sergeant Paul Sharaga, the first police officer on the scene the night of the shooting. When asked if he thinks there has been a cover-up inside the LAPD,
I would have to come to that conclusion.
If there is a cover-up, the question is why? To hide a conspiracy or to conceal slipshod police work? Who really shot Bobby?
Who really shot Bobby? Now, again, that was part of the WBZ report. Why would there be so much question about it when there were so many witnesses? The man they grabbed immediately, pushed him to the ground and said that he did the shooting, Sirhan, a Palestinian Christian who had strong anti-Zionist, pro-Palestinian beliefs. And he did testify in his trial in 1969 they'd killed Kennedy, quote, with 20 years of malice aforethought. Convicted, sentenced to death. Later, his sentence commuted to life in prison with the possibility of parole. That was in 1972, and his parole has been denied numerous times. And that assassination of Robert Kennedy gave a decision from the U.S. Secret Service to extend security to protect presidential candidates. And here's the issue. Knowing that it was his brother who had been assassinated while president, that should have been just automatic, but the U.S. Secret Service wasn't doing it. In fact, there was a request several times for the Secret Service to extend their security to protect presidential candidates. With the Robert Kennedy assassination, they reinforced that, and then the Secret Service started doing so. But the History Channel was taking a closer look at the history of the man convicted of the killing, Sirhan.
Sirhan, a 24-year-old Palestinian immigrant, was quickly apprehended for the assassination of Robert Kennedy. Yet, remarkably, after his arrest, the gunman claimed to have no memory of his murderous rampage.
Sirhan was glassy-eyed and essentially unresponsive after he was arrested. He was completely placid. He didn't seem to have any idea what had happened, had no idea why he was arrested. It was definitely strange.
The last thing he can remember, earlier that evening, Sirhan was having a cup of coffee with an attractive girl who was wearing a polka dot dress in another part of the Ambassador Hotel. After that, it's a blank until he woke up with people jumping on his head and trying to wrestle the gun from his hands. A succession of psychiatrists and psychologists, both for the defense and for the prosecution, examined Sirhan. They all accepted that his amnesia was absolutely genuine.
They accepted that his amnesia lost was credible. Funny that he could recall having coffee with a woman in a particular dress, but didn't seem to know what had happened moments after the shooting. The question has been raised repeatedly. Was he brainwashed in some way? His legal team argued that he was placed in a hypnotic Manchurian candidate-style state where Sirhan has consistently claimed he had no memory, and yet in his trial he said, I do recall, as I stated a moment ago, to read exactly what he said at that time, as he testified in his trial in 1969, that he killed Kennedy, quote, with 20 years of malice aforethought. But those around him said he's not reacting like somebody that has just killed Robert Kennedy. And they even acknowledged that. Did he or did he not know what he had just done?
A succession of psychiatrists and psychologists, both for the defense and for the prosecution, examined Sirhan. They all accepted that his amnesia was absolutely genuine. And many of them said at the time of the shooting, Sirhan was acting under post-hypnotic suggestion. In other words, he had been hypnotized and was shooting as a result.
Sirhan was convicted of first-degree murder and is currently serving a life sentence. But is it really possible to hypnotize someone into becoming an unknowing assassin? Well, from 1953 to 1973, there was a shocking top-secret CIA program that seemed to have explored that very question. Its codename was MK Ultra.
The MK Ultra program is a very weird moment in American history. And the aim of MK Ultra was to find out how far you can manipulate the psychology of individuals and get them to do what you want them to do. How deep it went is very uncertain. But that there were people in the CIA who had this aim is a matter of historical record.
But there's documented evidence that that Malta program did exist. So how much of the suspicion is true? Again, there's documented evidence this kind of stuff was taking place and our government was conducting it. So yes, there's more to the story, behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
In the early 1950s, the CIA was deeply interested in combating what they perceived as mind control research by the Chinese and the Russians in particular, and they embarked on their own program to explore the mind. But in the course of this research, the U.S. government made efforts to experiment with so-called brainwashing of individuals through a variety of means. One was hypnosis, and the other was the use of psychoactive drugs. LSD in particular was proven to be highly effective at putting people in a state of mind where they could be post-hypnotically or otherwise suggested to take violent action. Somebody who, without fully knowing what they're doing or even knowing at all what they're doing, can go out and kill.
In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all MK Ultra documents to be destroyed. But just 4 years later, a Freedom of Information Act request led to the discovery of around 20,000 secret files that managed to survive the purge. And while the true extent of the CIA's mind control program will never be known, is it possible they actually created a brainwashed assassin?
Now, among the MK Ultra documents that survive, we have a report, an internal report, in which a woman under hypnotic control who had previously expressed a morbid fear of firearms took a gun, held to the head of another woman, and pulled the trigger. And then subsequently had no memory of what it was that she had done. Now, this was all just a test in clinical circumstances, but it was, by their accounts, done, which sounds, just for the sake of argument, eerily like what Sirhan claimed, that he had no memory of what had been done.
Now, again, the gun the woman had picked up, and she was fearful of even touching a gun, but supposedly, according to that document, she did pick up a gun, put it to the head of another woman, and pull the trigger. It did not fire, obviously, but she would have done it. That's, again, part of the History Channel examination on Sirhan in the background. I want to give credit to the History Channel for that. Was he brainwashed? Now, again, at trial, he admitted he had hatred for Kennedy for years. Again, he was a Palestinian immigrant. Notebooks he had, or at least were produced for the prosecution, showing repetitions of RFK must die. His defense argued those were products of hypnotic manipulation. He said apparently he was also enraged by Kennedy's plan and pledged to send jet bombers to Israel to help them fight the Palestinians and others trying to attack them. All of that makes sense. Up to the point of, did Sirhan, on his own will, carry out the assassination? And that brings another point into play. He admits, of course, later in court that he did fire the gun. But forensic and witness evidence has also fueled speculation. There was a second, here we go on the Hill assassination of Kennedy in Dallas, a second unidentified gunman. Autopsy reports indicating Kennedy shot at close range from behind. Several witnesses who were there say Sirhan was standing in front of him. So the story behind the story has no resolution. Just another big question. I hope you enjoy this part of Larry Connors USA. It's a daily feature in our 6 o'clock hour. If you're new to the program, tell your family and friends about it, and then pull up podcasts of previous programs. And then push share. Send them to your family and friends. By the way, program note for you. Monday, Jamie is taking some time off, so Larry Connors USA will air at noon on Monday from noon to 2. The rebroadcast of that same program will appear in this time frame from 6 to 8 Monday. But you can catch the first presentation starting at noon on Monday, June 8th. Hope to have you here with us. And the story behind the story Monday, the plane crash that killed Missouri Governor Carnahan. He had been in town earlier that day for a fundraising event. In fact, I went to the event to talk to him, not trying to pledge money or anything, but I considered we were friends and friendly, and with his sons as well. I saw them, and then I had to go back to the station. Then later there was a report of a plane crash. Then word began to come out that it might be Carnahan. I said, until we can confirm it, we're not going on the air with it. So there's a lot more to the story behind the story. That will be Monday. Second hour still to come. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as Support Dogs for Our Brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Let's be candid, honest. No out-of-state law firm can represent you better than Onder Law, O-N-D-E-R. Hometown roots, attorneys living right here with you and your family. When you suffer an injury because someone else was negligent, Onder Law will make sure the other party takes full responsibility. You'll get full compensation, not a backroom deal worked out with some insurance companies. And, of course, we're moving into the stormy season. And again, when you have a legitimate claim, you should be properly compensated. Onder Law does not toy around with adjusters, investigators, lawyers trained to cheat you of what is rightfully yours. Onder Law has already recovered millions for families across Missouri and Illinois. Onder wins. Not just a catchy phrase, it's a fact. So I'll repeat it. Onder wins. OnderLaw.com. O-N-D-E-R, underlaw.com, wins.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
For some time, I have urged the administration, I've urged Israel to arm the protesters in Iran. I don't think it is fair to expect the Iranian people to stand up, protesters to stand up with rocks against soldiers with machine guns. Are we arming the protesters, and should we be?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any program to arm civilians in Iran to overthrow their government. I mean, there may be other countries doing it or other elements in it, but certainly not the U.S. government.
That was a question from Senator Cruz to Secretary of State Rubio. Are we directly arming the Iranians inside their country so they can actually stand up to the regime? Yeah, you want to go out and have a protest and shout and yell and throw rocks at those who could fire back with machine guns, artillery? Now, there'd been reports that we were going to help some of the previous Kurdish forces to be armed so they could go back in and take over Iran. Keep in mind, at one time, Iran was Persia. And also keep in mind, at one time, Iran, prior to them taking over our embassy, when the Ayatollahs got in control, the mullahs, they were the most Western nation in the Middle East. There were schools for children, including girls. They were not having to cover themselves from head to toe. They could not be taken out in the street and beaten just because a man wanted to do that to a woman and it was accepted under Sharia law. None of that existed. But the question Cruz raised reminds me of the question regarding former President Ronald Reagan authorizing the covert arming at that time of the Contra rebels in Nicaragua during the 1980s. And that event led to me being in a White House event, meeting and interviewing President Reagan. I'll tell you more about that before we wrap up this hour. Some of you might recall it right away, and some are, it's a little in the back of your head, but you can't recall everything. I'll get into it more detail for you before we wrap up this hour, I promise you. Welcome to hour number 2, Larry Connors USA, June 5, 2026. So with Larry Connors USA, you get news, analysis, commentary, and education. You're going to leave this hour with more knowledge than you have right now. And reminding you, if you miss any part of this program, you can pull it up as a podcast. We offer audio and video podcasts through NewsTalkSTL. You can go to LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook. And reminding you, while we're on the air, like right now, as you're listening to me, you can go right now to Larry Connors USA Rumble, and you're going to see the program as it's happening. Or you can go to News Talk STL Rumble. Glad to have you. Hey, how you doing? Hope you're getting ready for a great weekend, a safe, fun weekend with your family. But we're glad to have you either by audio or video. And again, reminding you, if you miss anything, you can pull up the podcast. In the last hour, our story behind the story, our feature that we always have in the 6 o'clock hour, dealt with the assassination of Robert Kennedy. Right after he had won the California election and was basically on his way to the White House with additional elections yet to come. And the man that was arrested, and it happened on this date, the man that was arrested, questions later came up, did he even know what he was doing? And there are questions about, was he acting alone? Yes, the same thing we heard from the assassination of his brother, President Kennedy, in Dallas. But it was on this date, 1968, that Robert Kennedy was killed. If you missed that story and you want to hear it, and you want to hear the questions about Sirhan's motives and did he or did he not do it, pull up the podcast. LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook, or NewsTalkSTL. And then share it with others. We thank you for doing that. Now back to Secretary of State Rubio testifying in Congress this week, the House and the Senate, as what's happening with Iran. Now, Rubio made a very distinct point regarding Israel and Lebanon. We've got Iran dealing with them and Hormuz Strait and Iran's nuclear weapon. And then we have the issue with Lebanon, the Hezbollah terrorists operating out of southern Lebanon, constantly hitting Israel when they're supposedly making a peace. Rubio made it very clear you had to look at this in two different factions.
It's one of the most ironic situations in the world. The Lebanese government and the Israeli government could do a peace deal tomorrow. Israel has no territorial claims in Lebanon. And Hezbollah in particular, in fact, Hezbollah has called for the overthrow of the current Lebanese government. The impediment in Lebanon is the fact that Hezbollah has embedded itself into that country and is the reason for all the suffering that's happening there right now and all the suffering that's historically happened. Entirely funded, entirely controlled by Iran. There is no Hezbollah without Iran. There is no Hezbollah without Iran. I mean, there might be a political movement with ideology, but they don't have a bunch of rockets. They don't have a bunch of weapons without Iran. They are a complete, total proxy of Iran.
They are a proxy of Iran. He's making it very clear they would not even exist. And then Secretary of State Rubio again in this hearing addressing specifically to Senator Cruz why the Strait of Hormuz is one of the key elements that must be resolved.
And these would be consistent with my thinking. I would only reverse it in the following order. The Straits of Hormuz, it would have to come first, because what they're doing there is unlawful and illegal to begin with. That has to open immediately. And that has to open immediately in exchange, not for anything else other than us lifting the blockade. We have a blockade on Iranian oil leaving. And the reason why we have a blockade on Iranian oil leaving is because they closed the straits. If they open the straits, and by open the straits, understand what we're saying. It's saying you're not going to threaten to shoot at commercial vessels of civilians and create, ecological disaster. That's what they're doing. It's unlawful. It's illegal. It's outrageous. Every country in the world condemns it. If they end that, we lift the blockade. Then we enter into the second phase, which is the nuclear question. On enrichment, they don't have to. They don't need to enrich. If what they want is a nuclear energy program, they can have one without enrichment. And it was somebody the other day, a few questions ago, I forgot who it was, said that what we're working on is similar to JCPOA. It is not. JCPOA would have expired this year. And it allowed them to keep all the enrichment equipment that they needed. And clearly that equipment could get them to 60 and 90% because they've done it to 60% as a result of it.
So we already know they have the uranium, and obviously there's the question about getting it back in. But the blockade that we have in place is to keep them from selling their oil and getting more money to fund their terrorist activities around the world, targeting not just Israel, not just Jews, but even their Arab nations, as a matter of fact, and U.S. forces in the region and Americans everywhere, whether you're on vacation in Europe or you're sitting in your home listening to me right now. Now, dealing with a blockade and sanctions, trying to cut off the flow of oil and any money going to them, I think it works. We're seeing it work. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul addressed that point, and he's going to make it clear that he's not sure it does work, and yet at the same time he almost has to admit, I think it is working.
I've said for a long time and argued for a long time that sanctions in and of themselves rarely, if ever, are of any value. I've yet to see any Chinese behavior that's changed because of sanctions. I've yet to see any Russian behavior change because of sanctions. I've really yet to see any Iranian behavior change because of sanctions. However, sanctions do have some leverage and ability to exact change if you remove them. So the removal of sanctions might have some hope. So I support the administration in this. Now, there are many Republican critics who have been vocal on the airwaves recently saying, oh, no, we can never negotiate with them. These are terrible people. Well, you don't really negotiate with really friendly, good people. You're, in a time of war, you're going to have to negotiate with an adversary. So I do commend and supportive of the idea of this. And the other thing is it's very verifiable. You don't have to wait for verification. You could say the trade sanctions end as soon as we get the 440 kilograms of enriched uranium. Now, it has to be dug, I guess, some of it from under a mountain of rubble, but at the same time be very verifiable.
I applaud Kentucky Senator Rand Paul for making it clear that he might not think sanctions do a job, but at the same time he's acknowledging they seem to be doing it. Not really an apology and a correction of his view. He still has a view that I don't think it does anything. And he says, I don't think we're really seeing anything from the sanctions we have put on Iran. Now, there I would have to say, Senator, look, yes, I know they're continuing to fire on their neighbors with ballistic missiles. And yes, they're probably wanting to still develop nuclear weapons. But they continue to carry out their war of terror. And the Hezbollah, as you heard earlier, Secretary of State Rubio reclassified state, they're not a government organization. They're a terrorist group funded by Iran. And the president of Lebanon has made it very clear, we're watching Iranians and Israel, in his view, use us as a bargaining chip, our nation of Lebanon. We got to put the blame on the Hezbollah terrorist, which leads you right back to Iran. You can't just say that's all because of what Israel or Iran is doing. It's got to be right in the backyard of Iran. That's where it's carried out. And they don't care. They do not care, because if they can continue to wage war, they're going to do so. So I would say yes at this point. Senator Rand Paul, the sanctions are working. We know that in fact, do we not? Hey, we're getting some great news regarding American business, which means it will translate to American economy, which means it translates to you and your family. And, of course, part of it coming directly from a decision by President Trump.
Mr. President, all West Virginians are so deeply grateful to you for your focus on protecting their energy jobs. The coal miners know the incredible importance of why we're here today, and to talk about the potential for new coal-fired power plants, that excites them. And I think West Virginians are really inspired because we're America's energy state. When you think about what's happening on the global scene, where that fight, that international fight with China for information technology supremacy, we believe that your policies are going to allow America to compete and win, and West Virginia is going to supply the coal, the gas, the nuclear to help make that happen. So I'm very excited by everything you're doing, even some of the relatively small things when you come in and you sign agreements with your administration, putting hundreds of people back to work. It's all making a big difference for West Virginia. So thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, that is the West Virginia governor, Patrick Morrissey, saying all West Virginians are so deeply grateful for you focusing on them. Do you remember? Are you listening? Are you listening? Do you remember when Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden's attitude was, we're just going to shut your coal mines down? In fact, Hillary in particular was saying, while she was running against Trump at the beginning, we don't really care about you coal miners. You just have to go learn another skill, learn how to type on a computer if you can read. That was basically their attitude. They wanted to move away from fossil fuel. And the other day, as we reported to you, even the UN General Council has admitted there is no more global warming issue, never has been, and they're admitting it's a hoax. The whole idea was to shut down coal mines because they were contributing to emissions polluting our world. And we were doing it under the Biden administration, the Obama administration, and would have under the Hillary administration. But China continues to just pollute the air and are building more coal plants. Well, now President Trump is using powers to dole out $700 million to produce what he says clean, beautiful coal. West Virginia going to be a big recipient of it. Indiana will also be a recipient, as well as any other state where they have coal and they want to get back to work. And they're going to build a major port to export it to other nations that need it. Now, at the same time, you got the naysayers still coming forward saying Trump may claim coal can be clean, but experts say there's no such thing. Look, you're going to have scientists on either side arguing, and they'll say follow the science, but they really mean follow my science. This $700 million investment in coal plants and then building a California export terminal. Look for the state of California, try to fight it with regs and everything else. They're basically slapping their own people in the face again, but that's nothing new, is it, in California? They make a habit of doing it, and the people in California, not all of them, there are some Republicans and independents there, and there are some Democrats that recognize this is not going well. And they're going to get to a point where they're going to get fed up with it, say, I'm done. Good, I'd like to see that. But they still have such a grip on the state, it's not changing right now. Same with Democrats in Illinois, particularly northern Illinois, trying to run the rest of the state, and in New York and other blue states. We are seeing, as we pointed out earlier, a massive numbers job that absolutely is delivering in the Trump economy what some are calling blue-collar boom, manufacturing, real jobs, boosting. Labor Department today releasing a notation. Hourly pay is up more than 5%. The average work week is expanded, particularly due to rising overtime. Manufacturing workers making cars, steel workers and others, and fabricated, prefabricated, all showing increases. And yet the left will try to sell you the story, oh, well, you're paying a little extra of the gas, right? And your eggs are costing a little bit more because the Iran war, the illegal Iran war. Riddle me this. Would you rather have 4 cents less a gallon for the gasoline or a nuclear bomb coming from Iran? That's not hypothetical. It's what Iran wants to have happen. And they will make it happen if they can. Coming up, the effort to ban one of the most popular handguns. It's already been banned, or they're did in one state, looking to do it in more, and yet it's not yet official. We're going to try to stop short of it happening. John Lott will discuss the banning of the Glock. Yes or no? Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is Silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Well, I walk into the room, passing out $100 bills, and it kills and it thrills like the horns on my Silverado grill. And I buy the bar a double round of Crown, and everybody's getting down in this town. Ain't never gonna be the same. 'Cause I saddle up my horse and I ride into the city. I make a lot of noise 'cause the girls, they are so pretty. Riding up and down Broadway on my old stud Leroy, and the girls say, save a horse, ride a cowboy. Everybody says, save a horse, ride a cowboy.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. Despite what we were telling you about how Trump is getting the coal industry revitalized and everything else and more jobs, it was a shocking news. Even CNN had to admit it. They're still sniping away. I mean, I'm looking at a piece on the Hill saying Trump's net approval is hitting a new low, according to a new polling tracker. Yeah, well, continue believing that. But we do have something in front of us we need to deal with, and that is Connecticut's Democrat governor joining California, signing into law a ban on the manufacture, sale, purchase, transfer of guns with a cruciform trigger bar. Now, we'll get into exactly what that is in a moment, but the specific gun they're looking at would be Glocks. And joining us to get a better handle on it is John Lott himself, and he is in charge of and founded crimeresearch.org. John, welcome aboard, sir.
Oh, it's great to talk to you again. Thanks for having me on.
So what is the, and I have 3 Glocks, and I have a couple SIGs. What is the issue and why what's this, how do you would describe the cruciform trigger bar, and is it any different in any other pistol or like the SIG or any other pistol to that extent?
Right. So, it's not just Connecticut. You also just had Maryland and California had previously had a ban on Glocks or Glock-style guns.
Right.
New York and Illinois are also considering this legislation.
And New York.
So, right, in New York. And basically, it's a safety device that's in the gun to keep it from accidentally firing that's there. Most semi-automatic handguns have something that's very similar to it, if not exactly the exact same mechanism that's there. And The claim is that there's something called the Glock switch that can be added to the style of, they say, turn it into a fully automatic gun. That's not really the case. What happens is it's a very different mechanism than a fully automatic gun. What it does is it kind of force feeds the bullets into the chamber, and you don't always get the chamber closed when the guns fire. So what you want to have when you fire a gun is to have the chamber closed so the explosion goes out through the front of the barrel. But if the chamber doesn't completely close, then what happens is that the explosion will not only go out the barrel in the front, but will go down through the magazine that's there. And there have been people who use these guns that have been adjusted in this way that have pieces of metal that go flying all over the place. They can lose an eye. They've lost hands as a result. And it's one reason why you rarely see these criminals using this type of Glock switch. We looked at the data from the beginning of 2021 through the end of, or just the end of May this year. And what you find is that there's only been 20 cases where somebody has used that type of adjusted gun in a crime. And half of those, only one person was killed. In about 2/3 of those, you have 2 or less people. So it's not even really clear what they gained by doing this, because presumably if they had a regular semi-automatic gun, they should be able to go and kill one person or maybe 2 people.
So let me drill down for those who don't follow guns that closely. Glocks being sold over the counter right now with proper approval. Do they have this feature, and are people then messing with it or adding it?
That's an excellent question. Yeah. So, there are these add-on devices that are illegal. It's illegal under federal law. More than half the states also have additional criminal penalties that are there. And so what happens is basically the only people that have tried to make this adjustment are criminal gangs, drug gangs, that will go and try to make this adjustment. But as I say, even most of these gangs, while they may think it's neat to have a gun that can fire rapidly like that, most of them are smart enough not to do that to their guns, because they're just as likely to go and injure the person who's firing the gun as it is to shoot anybody.
Now, more than 65% of police departments in our nation have Glock handguns in the possession of their officers. That's what they carry for the most part, correct?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's by far the most popular gun used by police, different Glocks. And, it's one of the most popular handguns that are used by civilians.
Now the other point, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm trying to cover a lot of territory. Please forgive me.
Sure.
But one of the things, aside from all the talk about the trigger forming and everything else, the bottom line is these guns generally do not have, these particular pistols, semi-automatics, many of them do not have a safety switch, and that is a fact. And I tell people, say, oh my God. I said, no, the key is, and police officers, they're going to need it immediately. They can't worry about a safety switch. They pull it out. I carry my Glocks, but here's the difference. I don't carry it chambered, which I have officers tell me, and you'll probably agree.
Right.
Well, you're not going to be able to do anything. Say, well, I know if they get away from me, I got one chance. But the problem we have with accidental deaths of children, which always get clumped into a gun in use, is that someone has one chambered. A child can pull the trigger easily enough, but no child probably under the age of 12 could chamber and put a bullet into the chamber to actually fire it when they pull the trigger. That is a safety feature right there. That's a safety feature in itself.
You're exactly right. Just the strength necessary to go and pull the slide back. You're right. Kids under 12 are very unlikely to have the physical strength to be able to go and do that. And it is an important safety feature. The fact that, even if you don't have an additional safety on the gun, if you don't have one bullet that's already chambered there, you can pull the trigger as many times as you want, and it's not going to fire.
You're listening to John Lott, founder of the crimeresearch.org, and I know you stay on top of this all the time. Are you beginning to see more of the public realize that, hey, we've been sold a lie about guns are a danger and the guns are to blame, not the person firing it, but the gun itself? I can put a Glock on the table, and it will sit there all day, and no one will be killed until it's picked up and used by someone in a way it shouldn't be.
I think what's happening is they want to go and ban all handguns, but they know that they can't do that. And so they try to come up with some type of story that would allow them to, in this case, ban one of the most popular models of guns that are out there. And, you know, they just want to take a slice at a time, whether they want to go and call them, you know, easily concealable handguns they want to buy, even though it's beneficial for people with concealed carry permits. Right. Or they want to go and ban so-called Saturday night specials, which just means that they want to buy relatively lower cost handguns, which may be beneficial for people who are poor to be able to go and defend themselves and their families.
Now, very quickly, we know the NRA and the other Second Amendment Foundation are filing against the Maryland new law and everything else, trying to keep it from coming in. We'll see appeals go out, but in the meantime, in Maryland and even in Connecticut, and where they've already done it in Illinois, New York, considering, can you still buy a Glock as it is right now?
Well, right now, I mean, when the laws go into effect in a month or two, it's going to depend on how quickly you can get decisions from the courts that can go and put a temporary stay on these types of laws. But I wouldn't be surprised that you'll see at least some periods of time where people aren't going to be allowed to buy them.
Now, how does that affect someone coming into the state that bought it somewhere else legally?
Right. Well, it's going to depend upon the different state laws. Some of them will ban it. You know, you're just not allowed to own it. Some of them grandfather in, whether somebody already has it. New Jersey, it has gone to court to get discovery to know everybody who's bought any type of gun in the state through a licensed dealer. Yeah. And they want to use that to be able to go and confiscate blocks. The problem is that, you know, that's not going to get people from out of state, but also the only people that they're getting are people who are law-abiding, who went through a licensed dealer to go and obtain the gun to begin with.
Absolutely.
They're not going to get these gangs. And the law-abiding people aren't making these adjustments to the guns.
John Lott, I want to thank you for your time. Again, folks, you can follow John at crimeresearch.org. I suggest you check it out immediately and see all the work they are doing to protect our Second Amendment rights. And, John, as always, I appreciate you taking time for us.
Thank you very much.
You bet, John. Yeah, that's, as he said, the bottom line is they do not want you to have a gun to protect yourself and your family. The same ones are willing to let illegals come in and carry out all kinds of crimes, but you're not allowed as a law-abiding citizen to have a weapon to protect yourself and your family. Doesn't make sense. Of course it doesn't. Coming up, Secretary of State Rubio in face of the Congresswoman from California. Oh, you got to hear this. Stand by, please.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Under Law, they know Under is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Under Law on your side. A St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com. McGuire Moving is Silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting, they will take care of that. You need some mold remediation, they can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
This is News Talk STL.
I've been holding out so long. I've been sleeping all alone. Lord, I miss you. I've been hanging on the phone. I've been sleeping all alone. I won't kiss you.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Last question for you. Mr. Secretary, who won the 2020 presidential election?
I'm not here to answer a question. We're talking about 2020. This is a foreign affairs committee.
Okay, great. You can't answer the question, even though we
all
know that President Biden won.
I don't answer the question because as Secretary of State, I do not participate in domestic
political issues. This is not about
issues.
Domestic political issues.
Certainly
This is about our democracy.
You're asking me to opine, just like I don't do campaign rallies.
It seems like
I don't do because as Secretary of State, we're not supposed to. That's been the long tradition of the department, and you should know that if you've been on this committee for any period of time.
Mr. Secretary, it seems like you have an issue admitting facts. You can't say that the president lost the 2020 election, just like you won't admit President Trump is losing this reckless war of choice, and just like you couldn't admit that the shoes the president bought you were too big. You clearly don't know what winning means, and not because the facts are unclear to you, it's because telling the truth would cost you your job, and the American people are entitled to a Secretary of State who tells them the truth even when the president doesn't want to hear it, and my constituents, our service members, deserve better. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I don't know what shoes she's talking about. What is she talking about?
Representative Burchett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'd like to answer any of that.
Yeah, I don't know about the shoes. I mean, he gave me some Florsheim shoes. They're actually pretty good. They fit fine. I don't know what she's talking about, and maybe that's what she's referring to.
Your shoes look very nice today, Mr. Secretary.
Well, how can you see them? They're way down here. We're talking about shoes. Are you guys kidding me? I mean, is this the Foreign Affairs Committee, or is this like a circus? What is this?
I think it's a circus, but I appreciate you.
He nailed it. There was Secretary of State Rubio dealing with California whack-out Congresswoman Jacobs, and she said she had to bring in his shoes. Trump gave you some shoes, and you said they were too big for your feet. You know what she's referencing. Let's go back when Trump and Rubio were going at it as political opponents for the White House, and Trump was calling him little hands, little feet. Remember that? That's kind of what she's trying to reference. And Rubio said, why are we even discussing it? But I'll tell you, the shoes fit fine. But what is this, a congressional hearing, or is it a circus? It is a circus, sir, the way they're running it. That reminds me. Give me a second here. I'm out of position for that. Hand me that bag, will you, Jerome, that one bag. When I tell you, and I used to do this a lot, I might as well do it again here because it just fit perfectly, and I just now thought of it. When he said, is it a circus? Send in the clowns. Get all the clowns in the car. Yep. I hadn't used a whistle in a long time. I thought, why not? I just thought of it. This program develops in my mind as we're doing it, which is scary. Which is scary, I admit. Those of you watching on Zoom, or I should say on Rumble, you either watch now or you could be doing it now or you watch it later. Now, there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that don't really get expressed on the air. I'm constantly into my computer pulling up stories, printing new stuff off because I want to bring you the latest information I've got and new ideas that hit me. I do a lot of prep getting ready for the program, but as Jerome knows, I suddenly come up with a lot of new stuff and throwing it at him. And he does a good job of making sure it gets on the air as I ask for it. Now, I had mentioned earlier that when Cruz was questioning Secretary Rubio, when Senator Cruz was questioning him and asked, are we arming the Iranians so they have something to fight against the regime with, as opposed to throwing rocks and stones and sticks at an armed militia? Are we helping arm them? And Rubio testified, we are not supplying arms to the citizens of Iran. That I know of, we're not doing it. Now, I don't know if that night that I know of is a escape clause in case this is proven later. And I'm not saying we are. Now, there had been allegations and reports that we were going to arm Kurds so they could go back in and take over Iran gradually. But this flashes back to the Iran-Contra affair, and this, as I'd mentioned earlier, was an opportunity I had to go to the White House and do an interview with President Reagan. I actually sat at lunch with him for an hour plus, sitting about less than 8 feet from him and getting to ask him a lot of questions. Didn't have the camera rolling because it's just us in his conversation, but it was an opportunity that I will always remember. But I was there because Reagan was trying to cover up something that he had been involved in. Let's be very direct about it. And reporters across the nation were invited to a White House briefing. I was one of the ones invited. Now, you know, when I go into these things, I'm not their patsy. I'm going to ask tough questions. So we were basically in an assembly hall, a gathering place. I can't even recall, an office building next to the Capitol, to the White House. And we were being briefed by, at that time, Caspar Weinberger, Secretary of Defense, Larry Speaks. Let me think. I'm drawing a blank now. Suddenly on some of the others that were there, Pat Buchanan and others, and they were all briefing us on what the president was or was not doing, reference Iran. Not Iran, but the Contras. What the issue was at that time, Ronald Reagan had authorized the covert arming of Contra rebels in Nicaragua during the 80s. Is a secret directive authorizing the CIA to spend $19 million to fund, train, and equip the Contras. The scandal broke in 86. So it was sometime after 86 that I'm there in the White House doing this, and I'm asking tough questions of Abrams, Weinberger, Caspar Weinberger, Speaks, and a couple of the others. And I'm one of the few in the room asking questions at all, and I don't softball questions like that. Now, at the end of that, they say, all right, we're all headed over to the White House for lunch with the president, but we need a couple of you to come up front. The first name they called was mine. I thought, whoops, I guess I lost my invitation. And I get up there and they tell me, you'll be seated at the president's table. Wow. How about that? So I get there and we have a basic lunch, and I expect him to come in and just take a little sip of his coffee and then stand up, do a speech, and go. But no, he came and sat through the entire dinner. In fact, we were engaged in the conversation so much, and I was about the only one at the table asking questions. Two of them were staff members, and there were two or three, I think one or two other reporters, but they were really not asking anything. He was trying to make conversation with them, but they didn't know what to do. I don't know. But I got in conversations with him, not just about politics and the issue itself, but dealing with his time in California as an actor. And then, of course, being a Democrat and changing parties. Or as he said, I didn't change, the party left me. And it got to the point where the press aide had to come over and tell him, Mr. President, we need you to make the speech. Your schedule. Because he was having a good time, and I was too. And I was thinking, look, even the opposition could sit and have a casual civil lunch with the president. You don't have to be in his face, fired up and angry about anything. And I was a Reagan supporter, but I was not going to make it appear to be that I was a Reagan patsy. Not during that questioning of Buchanan and Caspar Weinberger and others. But again, the reason we were up there is because the scandal broke about the covert operation. A cargo plane supplying the Contras was shot down over Nicaragua. Then a Lebanese magazine published details of an Iran arms deal. All of that triggered major congressional hearings. And you recall that several high-level officials, including, I know you'll know the name as soon as I say it, Oliver North and National Security Advisor Poindexter, were convicted of charges ranging from obstruction of justice to destroying government documents. Reagan did accept responsibility for the arms for hostages deal, trying to get our people out of Iran at that time and also trying to control what was happening in Nicaragua. Oliver North, a military aide to the UN National Security Council at that point, I should say the U.S. National Security Council, had actually proposed a plan for selling arms direct to Iran. Instead of selling arms to Israel, the sale was going to be directed at a markup, and a portion of the money would then go to the Contras for their war. It was a big ball of yarn. You start unraveling it, you didn't know what you're going to find as you pulled more of it out. But then it got exposed. But ended up getting me a White House invitation to a briefing and then a chance to have lunch with President Reagan. That's a highlight of my career, one of them. I have to admit it. And you know, you had no doubt with President Reagan. Let me add one other personal story. My daughters and wife knew I was going up. My daughters at the time were maybe 8 and 10, and they said, well, you tell him we wrote him letters and he hasn't written back. And I made a point to tell him, I said, Mr. President, my children, my 2 girls, they like you, but they're a little upset with you. And he kind of, what? You know, I'm not going to try to duplicate Reagan. I couldn't do that. But I explained what it was, that they say they had written letters, they hadn't gotten anything back. He said, well, what are their names? He took the name card that was on the table saying President Ronald Reagan, and he opened it up and started writing to them a note. I'm sorry I haven't responded before now. I just met your father. He's a fine man, or something like that. And I am glad that I can finally communicating back to you, something of that nature. And then gave me the presidential pen that he used to write the message. You're right. Yeah, Larry, you were selling out to him, weren't you? No, I wasn't selling out. You can have civility in politics. Too many people have forgotten that, have they not? But there was no doubt with Reagan. He was a patriot. He cared about this nation. You know he did. Did he do everything right just by what I was telling you? No, he didn't. He made mistakes. But he was a patriot. And that's something we're not even teaching our kids at all in school. We're not doing the Pledge of Allegiance generally. And not only that, we're subjecting them to wokeism and everything else. And White House spokesman and counsel to the president right now, Stephen Miller, says we need to return to teaching our children patriotism.
Children will be taught to love America. Children will be taught to be patriots. Children will be taught civic values for schools that want federal taxpayer funding. So as we close the Department of Education and we provide funding to states, we are going to make sure that these funds are not being used to promote communist ideology. For any nation to be successful, it cannot teach its children to hate themselves and to hate their country.
Absolutely. If the child's hating themselves, how are they ever going to love anyone else or their country? I know a lot of times we think we've lost our country. I've had people tell me we've lost it. We'll never get. No, we have not lost it. But we have to battle for it every day. And thank God that we have the opportunity to continue. I've got a story coming up that I'm going to tell you right now is probably going to shock many of you, and it's going to leave you sad and sickened the rest of the weekend. I'm giving you that advance notice. I know how it's going to affect you. It's going to affect you more than some of the other stuff you hear about. For instance, if I tell you that the Special Immigrant Juvenile Program found that accused killers, including MS-13 gang members and sex offenders, were some of the illegals who exploited the juvenile program, which offers visas to migrant youth who have been neglected or abused. They get to come into our country if they are basically subjected to abuse and so forth. They get a chance to come in. They've been using gang members, using that and abusing that program to get into our nation. They've already found 200 illegals approved for Special Immigrant Juvenile Program status. They were convicted sex offenders and more than 500 known or suspected MS-13 gang members. Now, obviously, that upsets you and it angers you, does it not? But, I have another story that's going to upset some of you even more, especially if you're an animal lover, especially if you're a dog lover. The Chinese Communist Party for years has allowed dog theft for meat consumption. I know right there immediately. No, I don't want to hear. No, I think you want to hear this. They allow it to happen, and dog consumption is not a common part of Chinese culture and been getting some backlash. And then, of course, you also have cats, apparently more acceptable. But here's what happened. The owner of a border collie, Chutu, he had, on China's TikTok equivalent, he had announced he had this dog and was showing pictures of him and his dog all the time, a beautiful border collie. He announced the other day on his TikTok, thieves had stolen his dog, sold it to a restaurant for $27, where his border collie pet, I told you you're going to get upset with it, I gave you the warning, was butchered and served in the restaurant. Now, I know that story is going to upset more people than if I told you that, 20 school buses turned over. I'm a dog lover, too, and yeah, it bothers me, but this guy has 1.5 million followers, and he was now seeking some kind of redress from China because they have not been stopping this for all these years. He declared the dog is dead, according to one of the responses from one person. Yeah, the dog is dead. Stop making a fuss. Move on. We treat our pets as our family, do we not? Of course we do. Reminding you, we will air at noon on Monday. And remember our pledge, one nation under God.